A frantic knock echoed through the empty house. An investigator pushed open the door, his flashlight beam sweeping across the living room. The sofa was still slightly sunken, as if someone had just sat on it. On the table, 3 glasses of water were placed neatly, next to an ashtray with a half-burned cigarette. But the scary thing was there was no one in the house. The 3 girls, Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy, had disappeared completely, leaving behind all their belongings, money, cars, even their pet dog shivering in the corner of the room. A house full of clues, but no witnesses. And from that moment on, the name the Springfield Three became one of America's most haunted mysteries. Welcome back to the True Crime Documentary series, and today we enter part 4, Dead Ends and New Leads. If in the previous parts, we witnessed the thrilling opening with a mysterious disappearance, then the suspicious men and the gloomy van, then in this part, we will delve into an even more terrifying reality, a series of clues leading to dead ends, and the new clues that just flashed up quickly disappeared. And of course, don't worry, I won't let you get too overwhelmed with the heavy atmosphere. Occasionally, we will have some jokes like, the police go to question witnesses but meet a neighbor who only likes to talk about his lawnmower. Or the story of the white truck that keeps appearing in the imagination of Springfield residents more than the number of trucks actually running on the streets. So, buckle up, prepare yourself, because this part 4 is like a roller coaster, sometimes falling freely into the abyss of despair, sometimes suddenly rising with fragile rays of hope. 3 glasses on the table, an ashtray with a half-burned cigarette, a house with no signs of forced entry. Everything was like an unfinished play, with the curtain pulled back halfway, confusing the Springfield police from the very first days. After the news of the 3 women's disappearance spread, a series of calls, reports, clues, and statements began to pour in. Like when you post a vague status on Facebook, and immediately dozens of people jump in to comment, "In me to tell me." The only difference is that here, each statement can change the direction of the investigation, and sometimes it drags the entire investigation team around in a maze with no exit. One of the first dead ends was the man in the white van. Oh, this white van almost became a main character in the case, no different from a cameo that appeared in every frame. A witness said they saw a suspicious white van parked near Cheryl's house just a few hours before the girls disappeared. It sounded like a golden lead. But then another witness swore they'd seen a white van, but on the other side of town. Then another said they remembered seeing the same van, but were sure it was the next day, which was unrelated. So the police were left with a sea of white vans, as if Springfield had a fleet of white vans that were used to stage flash mobs to throw off leads. If you put all the white van reports together, one investigating officer bitterly admitted there must be more vans in this town than bicycles. And of course, when the police tracked down the actual vans in the area, they checked every owner, every license plate, every man driving them. And the result? They all had alibis or no connection to the 3 girls at all. So the white van officially became a huge dead end, leaving the same disappointment as ordering something online that looked great but was misshapen. But the white valve wasn't the only dead end. The police also received a tip about a suspicious man who frequented the area around Cheryl's house. He was described as tall, with long hair, wearing a leather jacket, more like an unemployed rocker than a professional kidnapper. In any case, it took the police weeks to track him down. They interviewed witnesses, compared faces, and built a portrait. And when they finally found him, it turned out he was just an air conditioning repairman who had stopped by to fix an air conditioner in a nearby house. Now you can see how frustrated the police were. People were confused, everyone wanted to help, but sometimes that help turned into throwing the police a bunch of mixed-up dog bones, forcing them to pick them up, hoping that one of them was the real bone of the case. During the first month, the investigation team was inundated with information storms. Everyone had a story to tell. An elderly woman claimed to have seen 3 girls getting into a car that night, though she later admitted that her eyesight was poor and she could have mistaken them. Another man was certain he heard screaming coming from the Cheryl house, but couldn't remember what night it was, or even that it might have been a neighbor's argument. The police seemed stuck in a puzzle. Each piece seemed to fit perfectly, but when put together, the picture was distorted. Meanwhile, The Springfield press did not miss the opportunity. They followed the case day by day, with sensational headlines and reports, making the whole town seethe. However, while the public eagerly awaited the breaking news, the police were under even more pressure. Whenever a new clue arose, the press reported it immediately, sometimes even exaggerating it to make things more dramatic. One reporter even wrote, "The white van seems to haunt Springfield, appearing in every street, every story. Could it be the key to this mystery?" And then the police themselves had to spend weeks explaining that, no, it was not the key at all. It could be said that this stage of the investigation was like a long-running movie, with the audience impatiently waiting for the climax, while the screenwriter kept dragging it out with innocuous subplots. But behind this silliness lies a heartbreaking reality. 3 people are still missing, and with each passing day, the chances of finding them safe and sound become slimmer. Tensions within the police force are mounting. There are meetings so tense that an officer bangs the table and shouts, "We can't just run after the shadows that people imagine." But then, the next day, a new report comes in, another clue. And so the endless cycle continues. There's even a funny story. If you can laugh in this context, someone calls in to say they saw a woman who looked a lot like Stacy walking in the park. The police rush in, set up a search party. It turns out that the person turned out to be just another young woman, coincidentally wearing the same shirt. And when asked if she was bothered by the mistake, the girl replied, "It's just a little annoying, but honestly, being escorted home by the police is a little cool." See, even in a serious case, sometimes there are details that make people not know whether to laugh or cry. To talk about the level of dead ends, a small statistic shows, in just the first 3 months, Springfield police received more than 500 tips, of which 80% were completely worthless. Some people insisted that the 3 girls were taken to another state. Others claimed that they were hidden in a secret bunker under the city. Sounds like a Hollywood script. There was even a rumor that they were kidnapped by a cult to perform a ritual. Of course, there was no evidence to prove it. But those rumors still spread, making the case even more gloomy. And as each clue continues to lead to nothing, a question grows. What did the police miss all along? Was there a real clue, a small but important detail that was hidden under the mountains of confusing information? We, in the position of the narrator, can easily ask that question. But for the people involved, amid the countless noises of public opinion, they're trying to grasp a thin thread to pull out the whole mystery curtain. And sadly, what they find at this stage are all dead ends. If the mysterious scene in Springfield's empty house has left you in awe, then we're about to enter another maze. The so-called clues and traces that police and civilians try to pry from the messy pieces. And remember, this is not CSI with sunglasses and cool music. This is Springfield, a mid-sized city in the state of Missouri, where the hottest news before a case usually revolves around who won the apple pie contest or whose dog ran into the baseball field. So the disappearance of 3 women suddenly becomes a storm that blows away that peace. Now, try to imagine. An ordinary house on a Sunday morning suddenly becomes a crime scene. The police pull up yellow crime scene. Do not cross tape. Neighbors pull out chairs to watch the Super Bowl. And amid those curious eyes, the biggest question hangs. Where did the 3 women go? It sounds simple enough, but when you get into the details, everything is as confusing as a tangled mess of Christmas lights in a shed. First, let's talk about the things left in the house. All 3 of their wallets were still there. Their jewelry was gone, too. Stacy's Jeep, Susie's Corsica, and Cheryl's car were all in the yard. This wasn't a burglary. Or if it was, the killer must have had a very different taste. No money, no cars, no jewelry, just people. And that was even more creepy. The Springfield police at the time, to be honest, had no experience with this kind of bizarre mass disappearance. In small towns, the usual suspects were a couple of guys who got drunk and forgot their way home, or an aunt who ran off with her lover. But here, 3 women, 3 generations, gone in one night. It was like magician David Copperfield walked into the house, covered himself with velvet, and ta-da, no one was there. One of the most shocking clues was the broken light bulb in front of the house. Yes, you heard right. A small light bulb became the focus of dozens of articles. Some said the killer might have intentionally broken the light bulb to prevent someone from seeing. Others guessed that the light bulb broke during a struggle. There was also the theory that the light bulb broke because the cat jumped. In short, the light bulb was discussed as much as the Hollywood stars at that time. But after many checks, the police concluded there were no suspicious fingerprints on the broken piece. It was all for nothing. But that wasn't all. The small details continued to make everyone shiver. The front door wasn't broken. It was just ajar. And middle-class Americans often leave their doors ajar because it's very safe where I live. Who would come in? That kind of excessive trust made people hypothesize. Maybe the three women opened the door to someone they knew and trusted. And that person was the mysterious man in the van. But wait, we will discuss this character in more detail in the following chapters. Here, let's leave a question mark. Next, the landline in the living room had something strange. Someone had cut the line. But the question is, when was it cut? Before the three disappeared? Or after? The police only determined that this was not a technical failure. However, there were no witnesses who heard any unusual noises that night. Springfield is quiet, so the story of three women missing without any neighbors seeing anything is like living next door to a neighbor who grills barbecue every day but never smells smoke. Unbelievable. Another point that made the whole community shiver. The family's little dog was still in the house. It was not injured, not hungry, just seemed worried. They say animals can sense something is wrong, but this dog couldn't say what he saw. Perhaps his eyes reflected that terrifying moment, but it was all buried forever. Now let's move on to the public opinion and rumors part. Well, Springfield was a news pressure cooker back then. Everyone had their own conspiracy theories. Some said that someone had been stalking Stacy for a long time because she was pretty and popular at school. Others said that Susie had been involved in some shady relationships. Maybe someone wanted revenge. There was even a rumor that Cheryl, the mother, was suing a real estate company. And who knows, maybe this was a warning? In short, Springfield in 1992 had become the Midwest version of Hollywood. Full of scenarios, full of rumors, and no one could verify anything. Among the things that gave the police the biggest headache was the excessive curiosity of the people. Several dozen people entered the house after the disappearances, including friends of Stacy and Susie. They cleaned up a bit, accidentally disturbing the scene. Some made phone calls inside the house, and even heard a strange message left behind. The message, according to the story, was from a mysterious male voice, leaving a few incoherent sentences. But unfortunately, before the police could record it, one of those friends accidentally deleted. Well, congratulations, a valuable clue was blown away. This is a living testament to the saying, never clean up without calling CSI. In the early days, Springfield seemed to be frozen. The press was full of stories. Local television was running nonstop. The Springfield news leader even called it a nightmare in the heart of the city. And you know what? Even though the police mobilized dozens of officers, dogs, and even helicopters to search the sky, the result was still zero. No blood, no traces of dragging, nothing. As if the three women had walked through an invisible door. And this is where the self-proclaimed witnesses came in. There are always those who claim, I saw strange lights in the sky, or I saw a suspicious van. The problem is that the testimonies are vague. Some say it was a Dodge, others say Chevy. What color is it? Some said green, others swore brown. The driver? Some remembered a beard, others said long hair. In short, the police were in a mess. But amid it all, the white van clue began to attract the most public attention. Although no one was 100% sure, it haunted Springfield for years to come. In the first weeks, many search campaigns were organized. Hundreds of volunteers participated, searching every forest, every river around the city. They hoped to find even the smallest sign. But every search ended in silence. This left many people extremely confused. Some other parents did not even let their daughters go to night parties anymore. Springfield, usually peaceful, now became a place where people locked, and in the middle of this vortex, the national media began to jump in. Shows like America's Most Wanted picked up the story, making the case a national sensation. This was both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because people knew about it, hoping for new leads. A curse because the crook or celebrity seeker began making bogus phone calls, claiming to know about the case, even claiming to be the killer. The Springfield police, already exhausted, added dozens of meaningless phone calls. At one point, they thought they were close to a golden lead, only to discover it was a malicious prank. What was special about this case was the sense of cutting off, not just the phone lines, but the logic of the investigation. It was as if someone had deliberately erased all traces. And that's why people believed the killer must have known the three women, understood their habits, and had a meticulous plan. But if so, why didn't he leave a trace? This is the question that has troubled Springfield and the entire country for decades. And now, as we close, I want you to think about this. In a case where every detail is as messy as spaghetti, what is the real red thread? The broken light bulb? The ajar door? The deleted call? Or is it the man in the van, lurking in the shadows? The answer, perhaps, will lead us deeper into the fog of Springfield, where secrets begin to emerge. If we've been standing in front of a house full of trivial clues, from a broken light bulb to a shivering dog, then this time, let's turn to a main character that makes the whole case explode with a layer of drama. The testimonies, the witnesses, and especially the white van that Springfield has never stopped talking about. I will take you through each story, each news item, each anonymous phone call, as if opening an inbox full of spam. But instead of "you won $1 billion," the spam here is chilling calls, vague threats, and contradictory descriptions that make you scratch your head. What color is that car anyway? To start, we have to go back to that morning when the news broke out into the community. The people of Springfield, who usually live a slow life, suddenly became part-time detectives. Imagine, the neighbor who usually only knows how to mow the lawn suddenly wears a magnifying glass. The housewife who has no time to spare turns into an apple pie version of Sherlock Holmes. Everyone has clues to tell. The police are flooded with testimonies. One woman said she saw a brown van parked near her house the night she disappeared. Another insisted it was pure white. A third said it was definitely beige, like the khaki pants men wore to church on Sundays. The result? The police took notes, compared them, and finally sighed, "Good. Now we have the Pantone color chart." However, the scary thing is not the color, but the feeling that the car appeared out of place, out of time. Some witnesses said they saw a man sitting in the van, staring at the Sherrill house as if he were watching. Some even swore he had a thick mustache and a baseball cap. But others said he was bald, had a big face, and no mustache. In general, if you put all the testimonies together and paint a portrait, the result would probably be like a Picasso painting. But no matter how contradictory, the white van, or beige, or brown, became the symbol of the case, haunting Springfield for years. While the public was talking, the police began conducting a series of interviews. One of the biggest lines of investigation was digging into the relationships surrounding Stacy, Susie, and Cheryl. Stacy had just graduated, was beautiful, and famous, so obviously she had many admirers, and also some jealous ones. Susie had just gone through a troubled relationship, rumored to have dated someone involved in petty crime. Cheryl had some disputes at work. 3 women, 3 lives, 3 different lines of investigation. Instead of opening up a path, the police suddenly stood in the middle of 3 intersections, each with a flashing red light. Among the witnesses, there was one testimony that was particularly chilling to the police. A woman reported that she had seen a white van pull up near a convenience store in the early hours of the morning, with a large man inside, with a strange look in his eyes. She described the look as if he was hiding something. Of course, that description wasn't enough to arrest anyone, but it did leave people feeling uneasy. Was the killer still out there driving that van? And was he even living in Springfield, walking past people searching for the 3 missing women, as if nothing was wrong? The thought kept many people up at night for weeks. But Springfield didn't just have witnesses, it also had delusional witnesses. People called the police station to say they had dreamed about 3 women being locked in a house. Some even claimed to have a 6th sense. The police, already busy, were now sorting through each call like trash. But, sometimes there are bits of gold in the trash. A phone call, recorded, said, "Watch for a white van near Glenstone Avenue." The investigation team rushed to check, but when they got there was nothing but an old abandoned van with a rusty door. What a joke of fate. In that chaotic picture, the press continued to stir up the excitement. They published every detail, even exaggerated it. White van haunts Springfield. Strange man stalks. 3 women disappear in the night. All the headlines were enough to make readers shudder. And as a result, the police received hundreds of more phone calls from all over Missouri. Someone claimed that the van I saw at the gas station was exactly like the one in the newspaper. Another said, "I think my neighbor is suspicious." Springfield became a stage where everyone played the role of detective, but the script was chaotic. Meanwhile, the families of the victims lived in a real hell. Not only did they have to endure the pain of losing their loved ones, but they also had to listen to rumor after rumor. Some malicious people said that Stacy and Susie ran away to escape life. Others suspected that Cheryl had debts, so the 3 were kidnapped in revenge. These rumors were like salt in the wound. But what was most exhausting was that there were no clear answers. With each passing day, the door to hope closed more and more. But then, like magic, just a rumor about the van was enough to kindle a small hope. They clung to it, knowing it was fragile. Outside Springfield, criminologists began to speak out. Some analyzed that the killer could be a vagrant, traveling in a van, choosing targets at random. Others said that this was a planned case, with someone stalking them. One expert even likened it to a classic case of multiple victim kidnapping, a rare and extremely dangerous form. However, all the theories were just that, theories. There was no body, no bloody scene, no physical evidence. The case was like a Sudoku puzzle with half the numbers missing. During the summer of 1992, Springfield was on edge. Every time someone saw a van drive by, their heart would jump. Children were told, "Don't go out alone." Mothers glanced around as they shopped. The city was gripped by a collective panic. And at that moment, the name, the Springfield Three, was officially seared into the American consciousness. No one would call it the disappearance of Stacy, Susie. By the end of the summer, the police were exhausted. They had followed hundreds of leads, interviewed more than 1,000 people, and searched dozens of vans. But they had come up empty. Dead end became a familiar phrase in the report. Still, at a few press conferences, they would say, "We're getting closer to the truth." In fact, they weren't getting much closer. But, police work isn't just about investigating. It's about keeping the community together. And you, as I tell you this, may be wondering, so was that van real or just a collective hallucination? Good question, because from here on, that van will become a ghost that haunts every step of the investigation. Every time there is a new clue, sure enough, a white van will appear. It's like a supporting character that pops up whenever the plot needs a climax. And Springfield, whether it wants it or not, has tied its fate to that strange symbol. We have gone through a maze of testimonies, conflicting witnesses, the legendary van, and the collective obsession that has turned Springfield into a city living in suspicion. But remember, this dead end is not the end. We will continue to delve into new clues, unexpected turns that seem to be about to touch the truth, but then bring the whole community back to the starting point. If you thought that after all the white valves, inconsistent statements, and dead ends in the previous chapter, the Springfield police would stop to rest, sip coffee, and say, "Oh well, this case is too difficult. Let's give up," you were wrong. Instead, they continued on a new journey, calling it a new lead for fancy reasons. But in reality, it was like you were playing a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle with 400 pieces missing from the box, and someone secretly added a few pieces from a Lego set. In other words, the more you put it together, the more it seemed out of place. But anyway, with the Springfield community in extreme confusion, the police could not stand still, and every rumor, every piece of clue was blown up as if it were the golden key to open the secret door. First of all, there was the public phone clue. A couple said that in the early morning hours of the day, the 3 women disappeared. They were walking past a telephone booth when they saw a strange man calling. He kept looking around, turning his head as he spoke, as if he was afraid he was being followed. It was only a glimpse, but the face made them remember. The police immediately latched on to this information like a cat on a fish. They checked the calls at that time, but the system at that time did not have GPS technology, so it was not possible to track numbers like it is now. The result? A dead end. But imagine two detectives frantically searching, only to end up with a long list of calls for pizza. Yes, the suspicious man could have just been ordering pepperoni. Next was the graveyard clue. Another witness claimed to have seen a white van driving into the old cemetery in the early morning. It was creepy enough. The police immediately investigated, searched every corner, even brought in sniffer dogs. You think there will be a shocking discovery? No. They just found a pile of beer cans strewn about, indicating that some group of young people had just had an uninvited party with ghosts in the cemetery. The result? Another dead end. But the press was delighted and immediately ran the headline, "Ghost Van Appears in Cemetery." Reading it, Springfield readers broke out in a cold sweat, and the police just wanted to throw the paper in the trash. And yet, one of the most sensational leads came from a prophetic dream. A woman from another state called the police station, saying she had dreamed of 3 women being held in an underground cellar. It sounded like a horror movie. The police were used to these types of calls, but with public pressure, they still had to investigate. They dug a few places as instructed, spent a lot of effort, and in the end, found nothing but dirt and rocks. Someone joked, if the Springfield police were to follow dreams, they should have collaborated with Hollywood to make a movie called Dream Detectives. Then there was a new detail related to Stacy. Before the day she disappeared, she told her friends that she felt being followed. This is an extremely valuable detail because it shows that the killer had targeted them in advance, not a random crime. So the police followed the list of ex-boyfriends, rumored boyfriends, even a guy who gave Stacy flowers at school. But instead of finding the killer, they discovered a forest of sentimental messages like, "I miss you, I love you more than pizza." There was one guy who was immediately eliminated because the night he disappeared, he was on duty at the laundromat. There was a camera recording him stuffing clothes into the machine. That image was enough to ruin any crime scenario. Another intriguing clue. Cheryl, the mother, had complained to her colleagues about several anonymous phone calls she had received before. The content of the calls was vague, like a sigh, or someone whispering a few unclear words. At the time, Cheryl thought it was just a cruel joke. But when combined with the disappearance, the police shuddered. Could it be that the stalker had been targeting the family for a long time? Unfortunately, the technology to track phone numbers was limited at that time. The police tried, but found no clues. Another dead end. But the feeling that someone was behind the phone line, silently listening to your breathing, cut into the minds of the entire community. At this point, you may be thinking, why are all the leads dead? How are the police doing their job? Don't be too quick to blame. The problem is that the killer, if there really was a single killer, was either too smart or too lucky. There were no traces of blood, no signs of forced entry, no witnesses to the kidnapping. Everything evaporated. The police, despite their efforts, were like chasing their own reflection in a mirror. However, just as everything seemed to be at a dead end, an unexpected witness appeared. A gas station employee reported that he had seen a man stop by that morning to buy cigarettes. What stuck with him was that the man was accompanied by 3 young women, seemingly reluctantly. He remembered because one of the 3 had dropped something but was not allowed to pick it up. The police immediately considered this a hot lead, even sketching the suspect according to his words. But then, when questioned further, his memory became fuzzy, with many details mixed up. In the end, the police could not confirm it. The promising lead suddenly turned into a deflated balloon. Yet despite the dead ends, the Springfield community was not discouraged. People organized search parties, searched the woods, the riverbanks, and abandoned houses. They collected money to print flyers and hung pictures everywhere. Everyone hoped they would be the one to find the decisive clue. One old man even said, "I went searching because I couldn't stand the sight of this city being haunted." And indeed, Springfield at that time was the newspapers were still on fire. They clung to every new detail, even the smallest grain of sand. Just a rumor about a suspicious car immediately had a sensational article. The killer may have left Missouri. One newspaper even compared this case to the Zodiac Killer in California, saying that this could be a new serial killer. Just imagine, the people of Springfield read the newspaper and felt a chill down their spines because they suddenly found themselves from a peaceful town to the center of a national crime drama. Interestingly, the more they got stuck, the more the police received self-proclaimed experts. Fortune tellers, psychics, and old CIA men called to offer advice. Everyone was sure they had the key to deciphering the code. One man once insisted, "I know exactly where they are. In the woods, next to a big tree, next to a skull-shaped rock." The police spent all day searching, and finally discovered there was indeed a skull-shaped rock, but there was nothing but a fire ant hill. The searchers laughed and scratched, and the police just wanted to cut the phone line so they wouldn't have to listen to more calls like this. However, in all these new leads, the thing that haunted Springfield the most was the feeling. Someone was watching silently, hiding in the dark. He didn't leave any traces, didn't send provocative letters like the Zodiac, and didn't leave a bloody signature. But the disappearance of 3 women on a summer night becomes a chilling statement. I can take anyone, anytime, in their home. That's the fear that freezes Springfield. And like every good true crime show, I'll stop here to give you a sneak peek. It's going to take us to another phase, where police, press, and community collide with reality. Seemingly hopeless dead ends open up strange rays of hope. You'll see that Springfield is not just a city of fear, but also a city of resilience, of the fragile belief that the truth, even if buried, will still be unearthed. Honestly, if you've been following the past 4 chapters, you must be feeling like you're being led through a giant maze. Running after the white van, missed. Digging up the graveyard, missed. Chasing the prophetic dream, missed. Springfield is like a pressure cooker. The police are tense, the press is hyping it up. The people are both scared and curious. And the disappearances of Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy still feel empty, like an open wound that will never close. But don't think this is the end. On the contrary, this chapter is where the dead end starts to collide with the strange rays of hope, creating a picture that is both creepy and haunting. Let's start with one of the most famous searches, the Springfield dump. Yes, it sounds a bit cheesy, but sometimes the truth is not in the haunted mansions or cemeteries, but hidden among the mountains of garbage. Someone claimed to have seen a suspicious vehicle stop by to dump something in the dumpster. In the early morning hours of the day, they disappeared. So the entire search party, police, dogs, excavators, went out to dig through the layers of trash. Imagine, in the middle of a hot Missouri summer, the smell of trash was so strong, yet the team persisted. The result? They only found a broken refrigerator, a broken sofa, and a pile of old newspapers. Not a trace of the 3 women. The Springfield Press mocked, "We lost 3 women, but found a few sofas and a 1987 Playboy." But soon after, another unexpected clue sparked hope, an anonymous text message. A caller called a local TV station, saying he knew exactly what had happened to the Springfield Three. The voice was male, hoarse, and a little shaky. But when the operator transferred the line to the police to record it, the call dropped. Sound familiar? It was a classic phone no signal myth before the cell phone boom. The police tried to track it down, but failed. So the people of Springfield had another story to tell around the dinner table. Someone knows the truth, but he never calls back. Some even joked, he must be using a junk SIM card. Next, the police received a shocking report. Someone had dug a hole in the woods near Springfield. Witnesses said they saw flashlights and shovels digging at night. The police searched the woods, hoping to find something terrible. But when they got there, the hole was only half a meter deep, and inside were beer cans and potato chip wrappers. It was clear that a group of young people had just camped out, drank, and then neglected to clean up. Springfield had another blow. However, it wasn't all a farce. One of the most shocking clues was the rumors surrounding website construction, a local construction company. There is a conspiracy theory that the three women were hidden under the concrete of the parking lot that the company had just poured after the disappearance. The idea was so horrifying that it made the whole city of Springfield stand on end. The police brought in ground-penetrating radar to scan. The initial results showed some abnormal points under the concrete, so public opinion was in an uproar. They must be down there. But when the police asked for a digging warrant, the company owner vehemently refused for fear of economic loss. And then the incident stopped there. Springfield was plunged into controversy. Some believed that the truth was buried alive in that parking lot. Others said it was just computer interference. To this day, the parking lot still stands there, frozen as a mystery. On the other hand, the families of Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy live in wordless pain. Imagine, every day you wake up, open the door to your daughter's room, and the room is still as neat as the day she disappeared. The dressing table, the mirror, the perfume bottle were still there. No letter, no clue. They held vigils, lit candles, prayed. Stacy's mother said many times, "The worst thing is not knowing that your child is dead, but not knowing." That void is more haunting than the truth. Those words made Springfield speechless. Then the police received another psychological blow, a false confession. Yes, the keyboard warrior style before Facebook. A man came into the station, confessed that he had kidnapped 3 women. At first the police were shaken, but after a few questions, the man was revealed. He couldn't remember anyone's name, and he even described Cheryl's house incorrectly. In the end, it turned out that he just wanted attention, or worse, a few free meals in jail. The police were both angry and amused. The person is missing, and you're making it up. Despite the disappointment, Springfield did not give up. The city's residents became accustomed to the sight of flyers everywhere, television programs calling for information, and candlelit vigils. The community became strangely united, both fearful and united. Some called it a collective ghost, a mystery that pulled the city together. Throughout the 1990s, the police repeatedly reopened the case, hoping that new technology would shed light. DNA, fingerprint analysis, phone tracing, all were tried. But strangely, the Springfield Three case remained as still as a rock, as if covered by an invisible veil. And then, a major turning point, the national media began to take an interest. America's Most Wanted aired the Springfield Three case. The whole country sat in front of their televisions, looking at the faces of the 3 women. The amount of information pouring into Springfield skyrocketed. But again, most of it was fake news, rumors. The frustrations kept piling up. By now, you should have seen clearly. The Springfield Three is not just a case of disappearance, but a story of patience, endurance, and helplessness. It is a testament to the fact that not all mysteries have a quick ending. Some choose to lie still to wait. And now, after we have gone through the dead ends, the clues, the hopes, and the despairs, it is time for me to take you one step further to the journey 30 years later. What happens when Springfield grows up with this mystery? When technology changes, when the old detectives retire, when the girls in the photos become memories? Will there be any new clues? Or will there be only candles and flowers at memorial services? The answer awaits you in the next part. Don't miss it, because we will delve into the Springfield 3 30 years later true crime documentary, Part 5, where the past and present collide, where old pain meets new technology, and where the final question still echoes. Where did the 3 women go? Click on Part 5 to continue solving one of the most persistent and haunting mysteries in American crime history.